This episode of the CyberWire is made possible in part by SpyCloud. Stolen data circulating on the criminal underground is fuel for data breaches, account takeover, ransomware attacks, and online fraud. Your biggest security risk might be a breach or malware infection outside of your control that leaks the data of your users. SpyCloud constantly recaptures and analyzes new data from the criminal underground, powering solutions that proactively protect over 2 billion employees and consumers worldwide. Learn how to make recaptured data your best defense at spycloud.com/cyberwire. That's spycloud.com/cyberwire. The minor mystery of GPS jamming, Twitter investigates an apparent data breach, ransomware command and control staging is discovered, Andrea Littlembago from Interos looks at the intersection of social sciences and cyber. Our guest is Nellie Porter from Google Cloud on the emerging idea of confidential computing, and a C2C offering is restricted to potential privateers. From the CyberWire studios at Data Tribe, I'm Dave Bittner with your CyberWire summary for Monday, July 25th, 2022. Russian electronic warfare hasn't been particularly aggressive in jamming GPS. C4ISR reviews the potential explanations, and they closely parallel the reasons why Russian offensive cyber operations have been similarly restrained. The first possibility is that, just maybe, Russian electronic warfare isn't as good as everyone thought it was. Other Russian capabilities have been overestimated, and there may have been a tendency to exaggerate Russian electronic warfare prowess as well, the thinking goes. Maybe, but on the other hand, Russia has shown an ability to jam GPS signals, in Norway, for example, or spoof them in the Black Sea, for example. It's not like the ability to maneuver armored units against opposition. If you can jam in peacetime, there's no obvious reason you can't jam in wartime. Other explanations seem likelier. Or there's this. Russian forces themselves use GPS, and they don't want to deny their own access to the system in the theater of operations. Russia does have both GLONASS, a domestic alternative to GPS, and Chaika, a terrestrial navigation system roughly equivalent to the American LORAN, but these are not as widely used. GPS receivers are cheap and ubiquitous, and many Russian units use them. Almost every smartphone has GPS. Very few, if any, use GLONASS. GPS is everywhere, so this seems possible. Or maybe Russian EW operators, or more properly their commanders, are concerned about the ease with which their jammers could be located, targeted, and destroyed. The assets are valuable, and they have to be husbanded for a time when they're really needed. Another possibility: Ukraine's stockpile of Soviet-era weapons aren't dependent upon GPS, and so GPS jamming won't affect them. Of course, Ukrainian forces are just as likely to use GPS receivers as Russian forces are, and systems they've recently received from NATO use GPS, so this possibility seems unlikely. Or, finally, perhaps Russia is pulling its punches, holding its full capabilities in reserve against possible use against the main enemy, which would be NATO. In any case, the question has an interesting symmetry with the question about why Russian offensive cyber operations have been more limited, less destructive in their effects than had been expected. Twitter is looking into the possibility that data from a breach are now being posted on the dark web. Restore Privacy traces the incident to reports in HackerOne back in January of a breach that had the potential of exposing user information even when that information was hidden in privacy settings. Twitter closed the vulnerability and paid the researchers who reported it a bug bounty, but it appears possible that the vulnerability has been exploited to collect a very large tranche of user data. Restore Privacy says that some of the data released as a teaser are authentic, and that the criminal who holds them, who goes by the hacker name Devil, is offering the database for sale. Bidding starts at $30,000. 9to5Mac sees the principal risk in the compromised data as more plausible, more effective phishing campaigns. Twitter told The Record that it's investigating, but their comments focused principally on the January vulnerability disclosure. A Twitter spokesperson said, "We received a report of this incident several months ago through our bug bounty program, immediately investigated thoroughly and fixed the vulnerability. As always, we are committed to protecting the privacy and security of the people who use Twitter." The spokesperson went on to say, "We're grateful to the security community who engages in our bug bounty program to help us identify potential vulnerabilities such as this. We are reviewing the latest data to verify the authenticity of the claims and ensure the security of the accounts in question." Censys reports finding a criminal ransomware operation that's being staged, and the discovery comes before actual attacks appear to have been carried out. The gang involved is Russian. Some of the attack infrastructure, the researchers say, has been put in place in the U.S. According to the report, Censys located a host in Ohio, also possessing the Ransomware C2 tool discovered on the initial Russian host, and leveraging historical analysis, discovered that the Ohio host possessed a malware package with software similarities to the Russian ransomware hosts. The record points out that Censys duly acknowledges the role CISA played in the discovery. The record reports, part of how Censys was able to tie the hosts to Medusa Locker was from a Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency report released 3 weeks ago that spotlighted the ransomware group and provided email addresses, IP addresses, and Tor addresses that the group uses. And finally, there are special offers in the underground markets too. Sometimes it's like a membership club, a little restrictive maybe, in ways that might not pass legal muster in most jurisdictions. But then the writ runs differently in the C2C underworld. Security Week reports that Luna ransomware is available only to Russian-speaking cybercriminals. Luna is a cross-platform capable attack tool coded in Rust that's landed with some eclat recently in the criminal-to-criminal markets, is being offered only to Russophone affiliates, presumably because of their suitability as privateers. Are you a criminal speaking a different language? Sorry, go take your trade elsewhere. And now, a word from our sponsor, ExtraHop. With millions of dollars to earn, today's cyber attackers have grown advanced. Whether they're hiding malicious activity in encrypted channels, laying low under the guise of a trusted third party, or taking advantage of the latest CVE, they know they'll have the upper hand. In a world where attackers have the advantage, ExtraHop is on a mission to help you take it back. Learn more about how ExtraHop helps you defend your enterprise against advanced threats like supply chain compromises, ransomware, and APTs. Visit extrahop.com/cyberwire. That's extrahop.com/cyberwire. And we thank ExtraHop for sponsoring our show. Nellie Porter is Group Product Manager for Google Cloud, where she and her colleagues have been contributing to efforts to enable and implement confidential computing.
Confidential computing is one of the tools to protect customers' data in cloud and everywhere else. It's one of the privacy-preserving technique, I would say, where hardware will assist us to provide cryptographic isolation in addition to normal isolation that we usually have to protect our tenants amongst themselves and our tenants against the cloud provider itself.
And how does that work from a practical point of view? What exactly is going on behind the scenes?
So behind the scenes, CPUs like AMD CPUs and Intel CPUs provide specific instructions that allow very quickly and very efficiently to encrypt memory of your environment, your trusted execution environment. And by protecting memory, we ensure that, again, all sensitive data, keys, anything that you don't want to see by anyone else will be always ciphertext. But ciphertext, when you're looking from outside in, when you're running your application, your workload, your favorite container, you will see everything without any changes. And this magic is happened because those CPUs, so specific, I would say, system on the chip, or those specific extensions, not only encrypt memory, but very efficiently decrypt memory when it's coming to cache line. So memory controllers would be able to deal with this, again, situation and encrypt, decrypt very quickly. So CPUs completely unaware that the data they need to process is actually was previously encrypted and will be encrypted right after instruction will be completed. And that's probably where computational computing is different from full homomorphic encryption, when CPUs are actually performing their instruction on fully encrypted data.
So is the idea here that because we're doing the encryption and decryption in hardware, that the users don't suffer any sort of performance hit?
You're absolutely right. And not only performance hit, as security people, we also love to separate duties. And if keys and encryption is done by hardware, it means it's done by somebody else, like AMD and Intel and cloud provider, even if they wish, would not be able to extract those keys or modify anything as the operation and workload performing what needs to be done.
Well, how are you and your colleagues there at Google approaching this? What sort of things are you all going to be making available?
Done some work in this area. For many years we worked, and again, they are actually one of the creators, Confidential Computing Consortium. So we strongly believed from day one that only working together we would be able to crack this nut and offer confidential computing to our customers. And it has to be interoperable. Different approaches will be possible. But as a product, we offered our customers confidential VMs with AMD, what we call secure encrypted virtualization extension. And we provide confidentiality of those workloads when they run in GCP. We're also extending support of confidential environments to other GCP services. Our customers love to run pods and containers in our managed Kubernetes service, which is called Google Kubernetes Engine. So we offer confidential environments for those and for Kubernetes as well. And we bring in secure analytics to the market. We have a set of products that actually helping customers to run managed Hadoop and manage Spark. So we have confidential variant of those services as well.
Are there any downsides to this? Are there reasons why people might not want to implement it?
Again, you're probably asking the wrong person. I do believe that confidential computing providing stronger data protection control to our customers, and without implication of performance and usability, it's probably is a way how we will see cloud providers will offer the services for our customers, and STEM will progress and we will become much more available. The things that might be complicated for our customers never run only VMs and Kubernetes. They need analytics and they need ability to run data warehouses and huge workloads. So one of the customers told me, not once, by the way, a few, that they need to run in confidential environment HANA SAP workloads. It's huge monsters, databases. So we don't have the support right now for those services. But again, it would be one of the reasons why customers would not apply this particular protection for their workloads.
Do you envision a time in the future where this just becomes a standard part of cloud computing, where this is something that's enabled by default?
Absolutely. And I think it's, since the analogy that I always brought up is HTTPS connection. So I actually been part of a situation when somebody were telling us again and again that certificate for web services is never going to catch up. And it's again today when your site doesn't support the HTTPS and doesn't have certificate, it's becoming the exception. It's not the rule. I do believe that confidential computing will be exactly the same. As time will progress and more diversity of services and CPUs will come to the market, it will become simply default, ubiquitous option for public cloud providers to offer additional privacy and protection for customers' workloads and their data.
That's Nellie Porter from Google Cloud. And now, a word from our sponsor, Axonius. Asset management used to be easy, but things have changed. Now, IT and security teams struggle to manage a complex sprawl of devices, users, cloud services, and SaaS apps. It doesn't have to be this way, though, and that's where Axonius comes in. From August 6th through the 11th, swing by booth 1650 at Black Hat USA 2022 to say hello to Axonius and say goodbye to the old ways of gaining an asset inventory. The Axonius solution correlates asset data from existing solutions to provide an always up-to-date inventory, uncover gaps, and automate action, giving security and IT teams the confidence to control complexity. Visit Axonius at Black Hat USA to see the platform in action. Head over to axonius.com/cyberwire-bh to learn more. That's axonius.com/cyberwire-bh. And we thank Axonius for sponsoring our show. And joining me once again is Andrea Little-Limbago. She is Senior Vice President of Research and Analysis at Interos. Andrea, always great to welcome you back to the show. I want to touch today on the social sciences and how they are intersecting with our cybersecurity world. What's the latest there?
Yeah, no, thanks, Dave. And as you know, this is something I always like to be a big proponent of. I think we're at a point where it's almost becoming much more normal and accepted to have social sciences and cybersecurity. So it's great to be here. I wouldn't say that we're 100% there yet. I still remember, probably maybe 8 years ago being at conferences and being asked what a social scientist is doing in cybersecurity, and that was always the top question I got wherever I was at, at RSA, Black Hat, B-Sides, sort of the large community events.
Right.
Always got that question, and I never do now. And actually, in contrast, I see more and more of the next generation coming in with some aspect of multidisciplinary. They have social science training. They've got with data science or with various kinds of information security, and it's a really great multidisciplinary perspective that they're bringing into the industry. So it's very refreshing. It's great to see. It's great to talk with them about what they're interested in looking at, and then it's also great to connect with others across the industry, and that's been another core component of it. RSA now has a human element track of it. And so we're seeing more and more, acknowledgement that there is room for a whole range of disciplines in cybersecurity, and that's something that we increasingly need to go toward, not only because of the whole workforce shortage that the industry has, but just because it impacts so many different aspects of society that it really does take so many different perspectives to address the challenges that we have right now in the industry. And so that the more social scientists that can come into to complement, not replace. And I think that's the important thing. It's complement and bring the perspective in, the better off we are. And whether it's for looking at some of the legal frameworks that are going on, looking at the whole range of cyber warfare and discussions on that, and actually make it sync with decades old of theories that have actually been applied in other areas that might be useful in this area. Until and obviously social engineering and that whole element of it. I mean, there's just a whole range where the social sciences can contribute, and we're increasingly seeing it. It's really great to see that trend continue to emerge.
And so, are you finding that more and more the social scientists have a seat at the table?
Increasingly, I'd say I'm not. So it's not there yet. Very often, it's also it's kind of pushing our way in. But but I do think that there. Yeah, I think increasingly there is a seat being made. And I think there are in this area and in other areas of the industry still gatekeepers that try and keep sort of a narrow focus of what cybersecurity should be. But I really do think that for the broader part of the community, I think is excited and willing to work together, and that's where I think some of the most exciting innovations are going to come is when you have the multidisciplinary collaboration going on. We don't want the social scientists to be in their own silo and the vulnerability experts in their own silo and so forth. We want to get that cross fertilization together, and because I think we're fairly new at that as an industry. I think it leads to just a whole lot of optimism about some innovations that might be coming down the road. Even if you think about things like for passwords and so forth, right? Like, if you bring in social scientists can understand a bit better why or what may be a better solution to passwords. So it's even just some basic things where we're getting people to do more multi-factor authentication. So even the fundamentals can really benefit from that.
Yeah, I mean, what is your pitch? When you're making the case that the social scientists deserve a seat at the table and that you all have serious things to contribute. What are you telling the folks on the tech side?
Yeah, I mean, so on the one hand, I'd say, clearly, what we've been doing isn't working. We're still seeing, ransomware off the charts. We're still seeing, people, everyday citizens still are really not pursuing the foundations of proper cyber hygiene, and so that we're not necessarily succeeding yet as an industry. And so why not try something new? And then you can, continue to do the exact same thing we've always done. Is the definition of insanity. So we shouldn't be doing that. And instead of just continuing to look within the same areas, exploring more and starting to think about the human element of it. And that's because again, we see over and over again sort of the notion that the human is the weakest link, that was 90+% of attacks that are linked to humans, and we can't take the human out of it, right?
Right.
And so instead of blaming it on humans, which is a cop-out because we're part of the system, integrate them into a solution. And that's where the social scientists can come in and really help make the integration of human behavior into solutions, make them smarter, sustainable, and something that humans will actually implement as opposed to trying to work around.
All right. Well, interesting stuff as always. Andrea Little-Limbago, thanks for joining us. Thanks to all of our sponsors for making the CyberWire possible, especially our supporting sponsor, Tyke, the leading API and service management platform for managing API security. Sign up for a free trial at tyke.io/security. That's tyk.io/security. And that's the CyberWire. For links to all of today's stories, check out our daily briefing at thecyberwire.com. Don't forget to check out the Grumpy Old Geeks podcast, where I contribute to a regular segment called Security. I join Jason and Brian on their show for a lively discussion of the latest security news every week. You can find Grumpy Old Geeks where all the fine podcasts are listed. The CyberWire podcast is proudly produced in Maryland out of the startup studios of Data Tribe, where they're co-building the next generation of cybersecurity teams and technologies. Our amazing CyberWire team is Liz Irvin, Elliot Peltzman, Trey Hester, Brandon Karp, Eliana White, Haru Prakash, Justin Sabi, Rachel Gelfand, Tim Nodar, Joe Kerrigan, Carol Terrio, Ben Yellen, Nick Valecki, Gina Johnson, Bennett Moe, Chris Russell, John Petrick, Jennifer Iben, Rick Howard, Peter Kilpie, and I'm Dave Bittner. Thanks for listening. We'll see you back here tomorrow. And now, a word from our sponsor, Soul Cyber. Cyber insurance is a necessity these days, but with 1 in 3 applications being rejected and premiums increasing 50% or more, it may feel like dealing with the repercussions of ransomware and hackers might just be easier. Find out how Soul Cyber can help you get the right level of protection, fast-track your cyber insurance application, and even save you up to 30% on your premium with their Soul Cyber Insurance Plus program. Learn more at soulcyber.com/insurance. That's SOLCYBER.com/insurance. And we thank Soul Cyber for sponsoring our show.